In LEGO Star Wars, the hub features the Cantina band playing their classic song. Really sets the atmosphere, but turn off in-game music and they'll judge you for ruining the party.
Come on, man.
And don't leave your controller down in SpongeBob Truth or Square, because if you stay idle for too long, SpongeBob will start aging. He'll start growing a full beard, which will get longer and longer until eventually... If you see a wet patch on the ground in Hitman 3, chances are you'll also find a wet floor sign. If that's the case, the NPCs avoid the area, but if there's no sign, they'll walk right through and slip over. Speaking of getting KO'd, during God of War Ragnarok's opening fight, you battle against Thor himself, as Kratos punches his tooth out and it goes flying. Most people would expect this to despawn, but if you visit the same area later in the game, his tooth is right there on the ice. And in LEGO Avengers, there's way too many characters to choose from, but if you pick the Hulk, he has an insane detail. Usually he transforms like this, but select the 1977 version of Hulk and they'll spray paint him as a reference to the movie's low budget. Turn back to Dr. Banner and he even gets hosed down by Stan Lee. Over in Rage, there's an Easter egg that'll appear if you hold the RPG while idle. While most games just look at the gun you're holding, Rage takes it further with a retro Doom level on the screen. And while FIFA isn't known for changing things up every year, the devs added Ryan Reynolds to the game as a secret detail. If you play as Wrexham against Liverpool, Ryan and Rob will take over the commentary and roast them.
Of course, we're talking about Liverpool.
Tiny club, Liverpool.
Tiny club, tiny town.
An insanely realistic detail is a Warzone when you equip a thermal sight, because it'll actually stop working when you look through a window. Of course, in real life, heat imaging doesn't work to glass, which most of us wouldn't even notice. Sleeping Dogs is full of details like this, and my personal favorite involves the taxis. If you steal a cab and just sit there, after a while, NPCs will come up to you and think you're a real taxi driver.
Do I look like a cab driver to you?
The best secrets are the ones nobody would ever notice, and in Doom Eternal, you can select the classic Doom guy skin. He has a scar on his left arm, and while most of us would shrug it off as generic battle scars, it's actually because of the first game's artwork where a demon grabs him. You gotta love the continuity, which is why Dead Island included this hotel room. Everyone remembers the trailer for the game, which shows a family getting attacked by zombies as their daughter gets infected and thrown out the window. Well, you can go and visit this exact room on the map and see the tragic remains of the couple. In most games, you just want to escape reality, but some details are a little too realistic, like in GTA San Andreas. If you start eating too much food, you'll get fat, which sounds like a cosmetic joke, but you actually can't do jetpack missions because you won't fit inside the harness. Meanwhile, Hitman has tons of ways to eliminate your target, just like Assassin's Creed. But merge the two games with the Plague Doctor outfit, and the bodyguards will say,
Looks like someone's been playing too much Assassin's Creed. This is not a cosplay event.
While we're on the topic, AC Origins is set in Egypt, so there's a huge desert. Naturally, you're gonna find yourself spending a lot of time in here, but if you take too long, you'll start to hallucinate. And we can't talk about realism without bringing up Red Dead, because it's full of them, like when you injure a shopkeeper and leave. Returning to the scene of the crime reveals the shopkeeper still has their wounds and even wears bandages depending on where you hit him. Grand Theft Auto 5 has a heartbreaking detail that only appears if you follow this dog around. He walks up to the graveyard every single day, and he'll sit down at a tombstone with flowers grieving his dead owner, and hopefully I'm not the only one crying right now. Over at Death Stranding, you can do all kinds of things like drink Monster Energy, pee on rocks, and after all that work, treat yourself to a shower. But if you don't, Sam's gonna turn desperate and eventually begs you to let him shower. Crisis 2 is equally impressive. You spend the game wearing a super suit, which has its perks, including running really fast. But if you come across this speed camera, you better follow the law or else it'll know. Uncharted 4 isn't an open world game, but it still feels like one thanks to some ridiculous details. In one level, you can see this building being painted by a group of men, and if you return later in the game, it's damaged by fighting, but also fully painted. Of course, in Splinter Cell, you're meant to be quiet, and the last thing you do is shoot a fish tank just because you feel like it. It might be a little risky, but the reward's kind of worth it, because the water drains out of the hole you made and realistically stops. The fish even try to survive. Kinda like how the cops in Max Payne 2 try to watch TV. Walking in front of them and blocking their view is pretty rude, so be warned, they'll let you know.
Get out of the way, Payne.
But don't even get me started with turning off the TV.
Hey, we were watching that.
Now, Hitman has been out for quite a few years, but only recently people realized you could put down a rake and NPCs will step on it like a classic cartoon character. Saints Row 2 is all about being a criminal, and you can rob anyone you want, or so you might think. If you come across a blind person and point a gun at them, they don't react at all. Such a simple detail for no reason, like Far Cry 3's buried head. On the iconic cover art for the game, Voss is sat on the beach with a man buried in the sand, among other creepy discoveries. Well, if you go to this location, it's exactly how Voss left it. And in Forza Horizon 4, there's a secret that could only be described as blink and you miss it. During winter, snowmen are scattered around the map, and if you run them over, for a split second, you can see their faces turn from happy to sad. And it's probably because you also haven't subscribed yet, but I personally love this secret death animation in the Doom remake. There's a huge pit of molten lava in the factory, and nobody in their right mind would jump into it. Probably should though, because it plays an exclusive cutscene that references the iconic thumbs up from Terminator 2. Now let me tell you, it's not as crazy what happens to a corpse in Red Dead. If you go hunting, then skinning an animal is the whole point. But what happens if you just leave it there? After a few in-game days, it'll literally decompose, getting more and more mangled until there's nothing left but bones. I mean, talk about messed up. We're so used to treating games like playgrounds that setting random things on fire is super normal. Well, that's why it's so shocking when the NPCs in AC Origins will rush to the flames and put them out. But the secret everyone loves involves Michael's house from GTA 5. We've all tried to blow his mansion up, let's be honest, and it's hilarious when he calls you and yells,
Stop firing rockets at my house!
During the Whittleton Creek mission of Hitman 2, your target is a guy named Janice, who happens to have a painting of himself in the basement. But ego aside, it's when Agent 47 aims a gun at the portrait that this thing will angrily stare right back at him. One of the funniest details is in Watch Dogs 2. When you're walking around the streets of San Francisco, some expensive cars are lying around, but the best part is, none of them know how to park. If there is one thing I know about Batman is that he doesn't kill people. You could argue that he's totally out there killing thugs, but not in Arkham Asylum. To stay true to his code, every enemy you wipe out is still breathing on the ground, even if you just beat them to a pulp. Another superhero with that rule is Spider-Man, and his game involves a secret that went unnoticed for months. There's a part of the city where you can find Orthodox Jewish NPCs heading to work, unless of course you're playing on a Saturday. The game reads the system time, and if it's a Sabbath, these NPCs don't go to work. A detail that's way too unnecessary involves this note from The Last of Us. If you hand it to Bill, you'll screw it up and throw it away, but you can pick it back up and the note will stay creased next time you try and read it. Horror games usually have the best atmosphere, but Dead Space 2 is the last place I'd expect to find this secret. There's a random set of scales in the corner, and most players will run straight past it, but not only does it give you an accurate weight, it increases when wearing an armored suit. Another prop we'd all walk past is this Russian doll in The Division. Shoot it to reveal an even smaller doll over and over again, just how it works in real life. The Marvel Avengers was written off pretty quickly, but there's one detail that you have to see. In Thor's bedroom, his hammer is left on the ground, and when the game lets you play as multiple Avengers, none of them can pick it up. Doing this as Thor shows him holding it with ease, but then it comes to Captain America, who moves it slightly, a reference to the films. And look, everyone who plays The Sims has at some point tried to drown someone in the pool, right? I mean, I'm not totally weird. So, to account for this, The Sims 4 made the Grim Reaper show up wearing snorkels, and the urn will have its own floaty. A tip you have to remember when playing Hitman could be essential to killing your target. If they're looking at a mirror, you'll be spotted just by walking behind them, but when it steams up from a shower, it's time to strike. I prefer to take people out in Red Dead, and getting involved in a fistfight will leave you damaged even if you win. Arthur gets cuts and bruises on his knuckles after a brawl, which secretly heal over time. If you love admiring NPCs, make sure to play Monster Hunter because there's an adorable kitten making dough, and the detail in the animation is ridiculous. Not only is it a subtle joke to the way cats make bread in real life, but you can follow this guy as he carries it to the oven and bakes it. I mean, what? How is this a background scene? It's not just kittens working together. In Horizon Zero Dawn, you can watch ant colonies carry leaves up and down tree branches. Ice cubes in Metal Gear Solid 2 are also realistic. If you shoot them out of the container, they'll gradually melt because they're not refrigerated anymore. Now that you got the water from ice, it is time to boil it, and Skyrim lets you do just that. Fire spells heat up water, and eventually it bubbles before turning to steam. I mean, this game is 12 years old, by the way. You should check out what happens in Super Mario Odyssey. After you go AFK and leave Mario all on his own, he'll take a nap and talk about pasta, Princess Peach, but let him snooze on the street, and a pigeon can land on his nose. If you're looking for immersion, then VR is the place to be. Every detail's gotta be accurate, but not this realistic. Half-Life Alyx has washing machines that could easily be powered off, but Valve went the extra mile and lets you use them. Back in Spider-Man PS4, I can't help but admire the NPCs. Spent so much time swinging through the air, there's no reason to add something like crosswords into the game, but they're out here doing it anyway. Some Easter eggs exist just to poke fun at the real world, like in BioShock, where vending machines cost the exact same everywhere on the map until you go to the movie theater and it's more expensive. I mean, we're just getting way too real here. The same thing happens in Metal Gear Solid 3 when Big Boss loses his eye. After this happens, the right side of the screen is much darker than usual, and if you close your right eye in real life, you'll see exactly why this is impressive. Look at you closing your eye now. That's pretty hilarious. But something even funnier is that Sonic doesn't know how to swim. Staying true to this, when Mario and Sonic Olympic Games released, the devs needed a workaround for the swimming sport. Their solution? A life jacket. Problem solved. Those are 50 insane details in video games. It's been Tommy, and keep it here on T5G.